So what I'm about to say may sound completely crazy, and if you believe that, that's totally fine. Even Einstein called this spooky action at a distance. But scientists have proven time and time again that our mindset and our consciousness has a huge impact on the world around us. So I'm sure some of you have heard of Schrodinger's cat. It's a famous mental experiment, so don't worry, no cats were actually harmed in the making of this. But the idea is that Schrodinger took a box, and what he put in that box was a decaying particle that had exactly a 50% chance of decaying. And what he did is he also put a Geiger counter in that box, which is really just a term for something that can detect if a particle has decayed. And that Geiger counter is attached to a hammer, and that hammer has exactly a 50% chance of breaking a chemical flask that could kill what is ever in the box. All that really means is that whatever in the box has exactly a 50% chance of getting killed. So what Schrodinger did is he took a cat in his head, put it in the box, closed the box completely. There's no way to see anything that's going on inside the box. And in this state, the cat, which had a 50% chance of being dead or alive, is both dead and alive. So let me explain that. So there's this idea in quantum physics called superposition, which is the idea that a particle will take up every single state it can possibly be in when unobserved. The cat in that box had only two states, dead or alive. But the second he opened that box, the second Schrodinger looked at that cat collapsed the wave function of possibilities, which is just every single possible state the particle or the cat could be in, to a single state. So when he opened the box, the cat was either dead or alive. So another really famous experiment is called the double slit experiment. And so say we have a wall with two slits in it, and then a wall behind that. So say I'm throwing baseballs, just throwing baseballs at this wall. What's going to happen is that behind those double slits, it's going to create a pattern as so. Pretty expected. But what happens is if you take a wavelength or a wave, or it could be just a light wave or a water wave or anything, it doesn't matter. When the light goes through those two slits, they collide into a way that creates an interference pattern, as you can see on the screen. Some areas are magnified and some areas are completely zero. There's nothing there based off of the way the waves function. So what physicists decided to do is to see what would happen if they did this to an electron. So what they did is they just flooded these two double slits with electrons, just thousands of electrons. And what happens is it made a wavelength pattern, which was kind of confusing to physicists, so they slowed it down. They shot one electron at a time, just to see what would happen. And this is the result. Even though it was just one electron, a single particle with mass, just like my hand, it somehow went through two slits. This really confused physicists, as I'm sure it confused you just as much as it confused me, because how can a single particle with mass go through two slits and create the pattern that you saw there as those two particles interacted? So what they did is they set up a camera to try to see which of the two slits the actual particle went through. And what happened is as soon as they observed the particle started resembling the baseballs or the particles we were talking about earlier. It started going through one slit or the other. It stopped resembling a wave and started resembling a particle. And the only thing that changed was observation. Going back to what we talked about earlier about superposition, the particle, when it was unobserved, was going through both slits because those were the two states it could possibly go through. But the second that particle was observed, it had to choose either the left slit or the right slit, but not both. So at this point, we have to question, is the wave function collapse really random? When Schrodinger opens that box, that cat has an exactly 50% chance of being dead or alive, right? When you shoot those particles through the slits observed, it has a 50% chance of going through the left and a 50% chance of going to the right. But what if that's not the case? So Dr. Emoto, who's a really famous quantum physicist, did an experiment that's pretty much just called the rice experiment. And so what he did is he took a jar of rice and he labeled that good. And he took another jar of rice and he labeled that bad, and bad intention here and good intention here. And I know you might call him clinically insane for talking to rice, but he actually did this, and what happened is after a month of telling the good rice, "You're so good, I love you," and telling the bad rice, "I hate you, you're terrible rice," this is the results. The love rice, the good rice that had good intentions, no matter what you say it's about the intention that's behind that word, had turned into pretty much the same exact color that had originally been there. However, the hate rice had started molding and deteriorating and looked pretty gross. Now, for those skeptics out there who believe there's a lot of extraneous variables in this type of situation, well, the rice could have been healthier in this jar, whatever you want to say, here's an example of something that has no extraneous variables. It's called the Global Consciousness Project. So what Princeton researchers did is they took data from all around the world of random number generators, and they looked at that data in correlation with huge worldwide events, like 9/11, rebellions, elections. And what happened is that the numbers are completely random, and then when you hit these big events, the numbers would spike and stop being random. A number generator that's a computer program, it's completely autonomous and has no human interaction with it, started producing non-random sequences of numbers. The only thing that changed was our consciousness. So as you can see through the rice experiment and the Global Consciousness Project, we have a huge impact on our world just through our consciousness. And more than that, our actual mindset can have a either positive impact on our world or a negative one. It just depends on your mindset. And the funny thing is, this has been going on for thousands of years. If you look at pretty much any religion, prayer, meditation, whatever you want to call it, it really just comes down to intention setting and consciously putting yourself in a mindset, in most cases, of success. However, the same thing can be said for the reverse. As you could see with the hate rice, if you put yourself in a bad mindset, that's going to manifest negatively. So the implications for this are really endless. Think about the next time you want to get a good grade on the test. Just sit down by yourself for 10 minutes. Close your eyes. Tell yourself you got a good grade on that test. You know you're going to get a good grade on this test. You're going to ace that test just for 10 minutes. And maybe you'll get an A on that test. Next time you want to develop a better relationship with a friend or someone you don't know too well, tell yourself, I'm going to be best friends with that person. That person is going to be my best friend. That person who I want to like me is going to like me. It takes 10 minutes, and maybe that person will just like you. So my question to all of you is why not? It only takes 10 minutes. Thank you.